Welcome to the Influency Podcast. I'm Hadar, and today we are going to be speaking to Jason Levine, also known as Fluency MC. Hey everyone, my guest today is Jason Levine, better known as Fluency MC. Jason is an English teacher, but not just your ordinary English teacher. Jason teaches grammar and vocabulary through songs, specifically rap songs.
I'm back once again to strike, struck. Listen up, it's part 2 of Stick, Stuck.
Jason appeared on France Got Talent. He's made hundreds of videos and songs for English learners, and today I have the privilege of talking to him and learning more about his technique that has helped thousands of students learn grammar, vocabulary, and so much more in a way that is fun and will totally get stuck in your head after listening to it. In this interview today, I'm going to talk to Jason about how he connects music to language and how you can use it to learn reductions, grammar, vocabulary, and so many other elements of English. So let's go ahead and listen to the conversation I had with Jason. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy that we got a chance to meet here. And thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
I accepted in like a split second. I love talking with you. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. So I have already introduced you, but please, for those who don't know you, would you mind saying a few words about you and your background and
Sure.
what you are passionate about?
Yeah. Well, you can already hear, I guess, what I'm passionate about with how I usually introduce myself as a teacher, trainer, high stress drainer, knowledge entertainer. So I use rhythm and rhyme mostly in raps that I write, like hip hop music. I write to help learners of all ages practice English. So practice in the sense of repetition, but in a fun way, in a meaningful way through music. And I live in Paris, France. You mentioned that, but basically, I'm someone who just really is passionate about language learning and music. So I saw the connection pretty early on in my career, and just started doing more and more with writing my own songs and performing with students, different countries around the world.
So tell me more about that first initial connection between music and teaching.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess like a lot of language teachers in general, but particularly language teachers, I use music in the classroom, but it wasn't my music. So I was using music I was mainly teaching adolescents and adults when I started. Okay. So, music that was at their level was often like childish and not interesting. So we would, I went to pop music and found stuff, and it was good. But, it ended up being better in terms of like for cultural reasons, like to talk about the music and the meaning, and which was amazing. But for language learning, and I'm really big into, building foundation of grammar and collocations. And so like songs, the problem with pop songs is, there may be something in there that's really good, but there's also maybe other stuff that is either too difficult or it's not standard English, or it's too it 10 years after I started teaching, I realized I got to write my own songs, and it's kind of a story how that happened. But I was using music like I guess most teachers do. Like, I'm teaching present perfect, let me go find a song that has present perfect.
Why do you think music, before we continue with the story, but why do you think music is even important when teaching?
Yeah, I mean, music is a language. Language is music in a lot of ways. So, I mean, you could argue like that, really, as far as the rhythm of music, and then there's lyrics. It's oral discourse. It's the way conversation is. So, compared to other ways to use content with students, I think it's the closest thing to, I mean, of course, you can have listen to conversations and things like that, but it's the repetition aspect of it that's huge because we
Oh.
naturally repeat songs, right? So even if you have a
Mhm.
super cool conversation in a book, you're unlikely to naturally want to listen to that conversation 12 times, right?
I love that. I love how you brought it into repetition because I didn't think about it in terms of music. Because
Mm.
like there's emotion involved and there's all of that. Why is repetition important?
Because when we listen to something, if we're not trying to remember it consciously, we just remember it. Songs get stuck in our heads. So when I a
Mm.
great example is when I do shows with students, and I say, okay, we're talking about like the difference between repeating something boring and repeating something that we're supposed to repeat. And what do we listen to and repeat naturally? So I said, okay, when you guys arrived, I said hello, you said hello, right? They say, yeah. I say, but what if I say, and I have a picture on the screen, right, of hello with like some music notes, and I say hello, and the entire group, this is France, I guess it depends where you are, they all go, it's me, because of the Adele song. And
Yeah.
instantly they get it. Oh,
And
yeah.
also there's a moment, right, between you and them, and that
Mm,
builds trust too. Like they feel
mm.
like, oh, you hit like a place that is close to them. Yeah.
Well, they all say it's me, and then I go to the next slide, and it says it's me. Hello, it's me. It's magic, right? It's like it feels like a magic trick, but I was like, well, music is really magical in that way. That
Mm.
when we listen without trying to study and learn, and that's the paradox, right? We acquire it as opposed to I have to learn this, for my test or whatever. So yeah, and that's a lot of that has to do with the rhyme and rhythm in music, but there's more there too. Obviously, like if you like the song, or just the melody of the song, or you associate it with where you've been. Like there's just so many things about
Yeah.
music. There's so many things, but just back to the repetition thing. I think for me, my goal when I first started writing the songs, the idea was to write songs for adolescents and adults that weren't childish, that they'd want to listen to. I'm a DJ, so I made the music. I chose hip hop music because I grew up with the culture, and because hip hop's universal. I had students from 15 different countries sometimes in the same group. No
Mm.
exaggeration. This is New York City. People coming from all over the place, but everybody knows hip hop culture. It exists in every country in the world. It's the most
Yeah.
recognized
Yeah.
music around the world. So, and hip hop started in the Bronx in New York, so they're curious about it. So, but the problem is obviously this is the other thing we talk about a lot in my groups. It's like, this idea for, remembering vocabulary and grammar through hip hop lyrics. But I had one problem. I was like, do you know Nicki Minaj? Do you know Snoop Dogg? And we start laughing because I say, I love rap English, but it's for the culture. It's not the language my students in New York needed it for tests, for
Right.
class, for the
Right.
supermarket. you know so it's not about good, bad, right, wrong English, right? It's about appropriateness and your needs. So that's why
Right.
I started writing the songs, and for
So
me it
10
was
years into your teaching, you figured out I need to step in here.
yeah. Well, I wasn't. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I was, like I said, I was using hip hop songs that were already out there, that they knew. So, the advantage of a real song, it's a real song. They hear it out there. They can bring in songs that they want to know about. But, the downside is, especially with hip hop, it's, the dialect, it's different, so it's more about the culture, and it's really interesting. But I wanted stuff to get collocations in my students' heads. I wanted them
I
to get
love that.
irregular verbs in their heads. I wanted them to have like that base that they would get by repeating the songs naturally. So the songs had to be songs they wanted to listen to. So it was, a challenge and a pleasure to try to create. I mean, I made one song, it did well, and so I made more. I mean, it was pretty easy for me, it turned out. But yeah, it's just, for me, it's really about building that base. It's not that I don't want to discuss meaning in songs and meaning in stories. It's that you can't get to the point where you can discuss meaning in another language unless you have the grammar and vocabulary right here,
Yeah.
and you're comfortable using it. This is the huge problem.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. And I agree with you 100% because I feel like repetition. I used to study acting. I used to be an
Mm,
actress in New York. And I remember that, like, because I never officially learned English except for school, which was, I did really bad. But
mm,
to be able to communicate the way I am now able, too, I think that memorizing a lot of scripts really helped. And I remember myself
Mm,
walking down the streets of New York, just saying the lines out loud, right?
absolutely.
Repetition, like sentence after, like repeating the same sentence again and
Mm,
again. And then not only would I remember words into subconsciously, unintentionally, I would also remember structures.
oh
And
yeah.
I remember like thinking, starting a sentence, and then it hit like a place in the brain where I know this structure, and I would
Yeah.
just change the content words, but the structure would stay the same as I had
I love it.
memorized it,
I
right?
love it. I
And
love it.
now like I have sprints, which is not songs. Like for me, I feel I guess I'm intimidated by teaching through music. I don't have the knack that you do, but I do it with repetitions like I did the memorizing.
Yeah.
But just to say that it works, because you have to, it's a habit, right? Like speaking, like collocations and
Mm,
structures and irregular verbs and all of the, and even words, they're habits that you need to
mm.
be able to retrieve really quickly. And
What you're
then,
saying is so interesting because what you're describing, like being able to like access like the syntax, like the stem, the sentence stem stuff. That's all the stuff that happens in like substitution drills in books in the classroom. From rote learning through you know uh, old methods. So it's like you know. The idea of like audiolingual was good in the sense of you need those repetitions. What's bad is it's not meaningful to repeat stuff
right,
that's not
right.
in context. But communicative language teaching started with a good hybrid, but then they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. All of a sudden, all that controlled practice stuff kind of started to disappear to the
Yeah.
point, at least for me in the States, I don't know in the UK or other places, but schools that used to really do it both, like try to get students to get a lot of stuff here and then do more freer practice. We're kind of, like, Korean students, Brazilian students, Italian students in a room be like, what do you think of gun control? And like, oh, are you shy? Why aren't you talking? Wait a second. They don't have anything up here to say. So, but also back to the acting. I mean, to me, the music and that, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
What's important is that you're repeating it because it's
You
meaningful.
feel, yeah, and
You,
there
yeah,
is an
you want
emotion attached with it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's also, if it's lines from something, it's also in context. It's not these,
Yeah.
arbitrary, independent
Which
sentences
doesn't
from a
work.
book or a list
Yeah.
that somebody gave you. The list thing doesn't work, right? But if
Doesn't work.
but yeah, anything. So it's, to me, it's not just music. Games too. If you play the same game and you get addicted to it in that game, you're getting exposure to certain grammar and vocabulary. Whatever you're doing with repetition. However, there are a few things about music that are different. The rhyme and the rhythm, like the things that kind of turbocharge it as far as
Right.
what happens when you
Exactly. I
repeat
think the
stuff. Mm,
rhyming plays a significant
yeah.
role. It's like almost addictive in a way.
Yeah,
Like you
absolutely. And I
want
would
to,
argue rhythm even more. Rhyme seems
yeah.
like it would be the most important, but then you find languages that don't have rhyme, but no language doesn't have a rhythm, even if the rhythm is, not as pronounced as English. That's a whole nother thing about why to use music when you're teaching English. Because in fact, the rhythm of English on the content words is very similar to 4/4 time in music. And when you get into hip hop, which is almost always 4/4 with very strong beats, and you realize that it's more like oral discourse, what they're saying, it's not as much melody. Wow, you are right. That's literally the sweet spot as
Yeah.
far as you listen to enough rap. Again, it depends what you're listening to, and that's why I write the rap, right? But what happens is, because you repeat it, you're going to remember music. But because it's rap, you're more likely to understand conversation because conversation follows the rhythm of rap
Yeah.
more than like a song with a lot of melody and up and down.
I love that. And in a second, I'm going to ask you to explain American rhythm specifically
Oh,
for
good.
those
I
who
love
have
that.
no idea what that means. But I have to say about the music, when I lived in New York, I worked at a jazz bar. I was obsessed with jazz. I listened to, really experimental jazz, and I found that there is a strong connection between the language and jazz music, right? Like
Mm.
all the syncopated notes. And like when I
Oh,
listen
yeah.
to how people speak and the breaks that they take, it's offbeat, right? Like it's not the
Mm.
on beat, like melody of
Mm.
Happy birthday. It's like happy birthday to you. Like that is the rhythm of English the way I see it. And
Yeah.
especially the silence between sentences. So for you it was rap, for me it was jazz, and I
Ooh.
remember trying to improvise on a jazz line speaking, and that
Yeah.
was like, this is where I found the connection. I was like,
Well,
no wonder that this is where jazz like that's the language jazz has emerged from.
yeah,
uh,
totally, totally. An enormous influence of jazz in hip hop, in rap music. So, you know.
yeah. Okay, so tell me about rhythm in
Yeah.
English. What is it all about?
Well, I first discovered it in a linguistics class when I was doing my master's in TESOL. I'd already taught a few years when I was doing that, but I had this teacher that said something just blew my mind apart. She was like, she taught us about how, English as a Germanic language had more cases on words. You could move words around more, long, long time ago. And that it kind of dropped its cases. And when it dropped those cases, meaning, if you have a noun, if it's an object, if it's a subject, you could move them around more in the sentence, but you'd understand because of the ending, right, of the word, just in case that's confusing to some people. So what happened when the cases dropped on is that word order became very fixed compared to
Mhm.
many languages. So subject, verb, object became the word order. And we know there are exceptions, right? Passive voice and questions and negative inversion, right? But there are exceptions, right? We have this very
Right.
fixed word order, whereas most languages in the world, you can move things around more. So according to her, and I've been talking about it ever since, is that this also affects the stress, the words, the sentence stress. So that, when we talk about, I mean, almost everybody talks about, the content words are stressed, the grammar, the function words, the prepositions, the articles, the pronouns, right, are reduced, and they can link or just connect to the content words. So, but this is just kind of a way to think about it that's even cooler, which is sort of the history of it. So that's why English is so stress timed.
Mm.
So languages like, French, Spanish, all the Romance languages, for example, languages in most Asian languages, right, are syllable timed.
Syllable
And,
time.
where each syllable has the same length. And then you have languages like Spanish, where when that doesn't happen, there's an accent to show you where to put it, right? Where,
Yeah.
in English, if you put that everywhere, that there was stress, it would be, every sentence would have them all over the place, right?
Right.
So this is fascinating, and I was, I started really focusing a lot on reduced and connected speech, calling it shrinking and linking. So I was
Mhm.
like showing students, how the words change, the shoulda, coulda, woulda, gonna, wanna stuff. And then I realized, wait, I shouldn't write it that way. The best way, right, is to really show where the stress is, and
Mm.
raise awareness about how the other function words reduce, so I just started in the songs. Well, it was before the songs and games. Anytime I did anything, I put bold font
Mhm.
on the syllable in the word, or on the word if it's the sentence stress, right? And because in dictionaries, even me, I'd forget it when they put that little thing. Is that for the syllable
Right.
after the syllable? It really makes me crazy. And that's,
Right. I'm all
don't
about
get me
phonetic
don't get me
transcription.
started
Have
on
to
the
see it.
phonemes, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
so it's, some people like that, fine, but develop my own way also for, like, the short A sound or the long E
Yeah.
sound or something, right? Not the phonetics. But for the stress, I also realized, this is maybe the most important thing to say about it, is that when students could see, not just me telling them, see visually where it was, and they started
Yeah.
following it as a rhythm. And then when I got to music, it was became even more obvious to them. But a lot of the issues they had with individual sounds, vowel sounds and consonant clusters, it just disappeared. And so that I found myself working less on specific problems with sounds. And maybe part of it is also just psychological, when they realized the reason the taxi driver didn't understand where to take me is because I said, Port Authority, not Port Authority, right? Or,
Yeah.
Grand Central, not Grand
Right.
Central,
Or
So did that
30th,
student,
30 or 13th. instead of,
Exactly.
right. It actually
Exactly.
happened to me once because they didn't hear if I said 30th or 13th back in like when I first started.
Exactly. So the student, I'm thinking, I had a lot of Japanese Korean students in New York when this was happening. Did that person student who said Port Authority have a problem with maybe R in that word to be understood, or yeah, but it was the stress. So I have
Yeah,
students
stress is critical.
who still had problems with individual sounds, but if they just focused on the stress, they were understood. So they really started believing in that as
Yeah.
the way. It doesn't mean they didn't want to work on sounds, but they realized, hey, if I know where to put the stress on this word, I know which word in the sentence to put it on, then people understand me. Wow. And I
Yeah.
understand them. Also, we haven't even talked about the listening part of it, right?
Yeah.
They're able to catch much more that way.
Which is a very, like, I love this attitude that is very realistic and practical for our students, that is not about perfection. It's not
Mm,
about getting them to sound like natives. It's really to be understood and to feel confident. And that's how you build your confidence and enhance your clarity even more. But it's like, first of all, let's prioritize what's really getting in your way. And then we can take care of everything else.
of course, and everybody needs that. So for the people that, like, I really want to sound native, blah blah blah, if they do this and they really decide to, like, want to perfect this or that, they can, right? But everybody needs this. And also, you'll lose people along the way if it's about perfecting accents, because that
Yeah.
turns the people off. It's like, it's too hard, I give up. But in reality, they didn't need to do all that fine tuning. They needed to focus on the basics for communication and for being understood and understanding.
So, what would you tell someone who wants to start improving their rhythm or to
Mm,
understand? Because rhythm is so unlike the R sound or the TH sound that you feel it and you see it.
yeah, yeah.
Rhythm is so internal in a way. And sometimes
Mm,
you would say something or play, help them like feel the beat and they would still not get it. So, there is a lot of perception that needs to happen. And then
yeah.
they need to internalize it and then to
Mm.
feel comfortable using it. So, what is the process that you take your students through?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there are two answers. One would be like the process I take my students through, or somebody else, a teacher could do, a guide, somebody to help, which I think is important, at least to get started. But the good thing is, after that, it's sort of a self learning continuation thing. And then somebody who may be watching this and being like, what can I do on my own? I mean, if you're on your own and you're really familiar with English, you're a pretty advanced learner, you could maybe, listen to something, whether it's a song, whether it's, TOEIC listening, whether it's a podcast, and look at a script and try to think, where is the rhythm? The first thing I would say, absolutely, is not to think of it as, like, a science or the rules or whatever. Yes, we can say that content words are usually stressed, right? Words, we can be pretty, I mean, there are variations, dialects, British people saying, innovative, and we say innovative in the States, but words generally have stress, but in terms of which words in the sentence, right? So it's not something like, and especially people are like, oh, it's the penultimate stress, the tertiary stress. Like,
Right.
I would advise people, just, where's the main stress?
Where's
In
the
the word,
punch?
in the
Yeah.
sentence, yeah. There, don't fool around with where, unless you're interested in linguistics or being a teacher or something where you might need to explain those things to people. That's different. But yeah, for the everyday learner, but I would say that it's probably tough the first time you hear something to be sure, is that where the stress is? So it's great to have a teacher guide you. It's great to see patterns, like in terms of words like ATE verbs. If we're talking about somebody who's interested in, like, academic English, the most common academic verbs are ATE. So the stress pattern is very regular. Educate, and it's not always academic, like celebrate,
Right.
collaborate, right? So, and you could say, oh, so if the word has 3 syllables, it's on the second, right? It's not really that as much as just hearing the patterns and songs with those words. I have an ATE song, and then going to the noun, right? So educate, education, graduate, graduation. So starting to see patterns, I think, is the first thing on a word level. At the
Yeah.
same time, thinking about, okay, most sentences, it's like a 4/4 time signature. It really is, with, like, three: subject, verb, object, but not to think like it's always subject, verb, object. But a great example is, I know we may have talked about this example, and there are other people have different examples, but students play music, the students play the music, the students are playing the music, the students have been playing the music. You get all the way up to future perfect continuous. The students will
Will
have been
have been
playing
playing
the
the
music. So,
music.
wow,
Love that.
students play music is 4 syllables. The students will have been playing the music is 11, and it's the same space, right?
Space. Yeah.
And you mentioned happy birthday before. If people are like, oh, this is like any language is like this. No, here's a great test. You do happy birthday. I can do happy birthday to Hadar, or I could do happy birthday to Hadar. Teaches English and used to live in New York. It was acting classes, and she's a really great person. Happy. You can squeeze as much as you want
Right.
into that space in English, and try that in another language, and it's impossible.
It's not going to work. But how would you? Okay, so here's a student trying to do that, but they're not used to reducing. Let's say trying to squeeze in. What would you
Right.
tell them?
I used to think, let's practice the reductions. I mean, this is just my opinion from my experience, but I don't do that as much. I practice the stress, and the reductions kind of follow.
Will come as long as you keep the melody or the rhythm or whatever it is.
Absolutely. So like, I hear students even with contractions try to struggle. So if a student's struggling with, like, they're saying you are, and or that's not, they will, they'll, right? If they can't get the they'll right now, that's fine. Just try to do they will. They will. Focus on the they. You got your will. You get enough exposure, listening and practicing, it'll happen, right? I think.
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot of my students who say I don't. I find it really hard to reduce the function words or all those connecting words to a schwa. And I said, like, it doesn't matter if you pronounce it as a pure vowel, and even if the vowel is incorrect, as long as you go softer, you go faster, you put the stress where it matters, then it doesn't matter. Because people, you know how it is when you skim through a text and you don't really read every single word. This is how we listen.
Like a gloss.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, you're not reading every single word.
No.
And let people watching this, I think about how you read in your first language, not even in English, right? You just it's kind of like photograph the text and you understand what it means really quickly. And this is how we listen too. So while learners really focus on the nuances and people don't notice if you say in versus or of versus of, like they don't, because their brain is geared towards hearing the stressed words. And this is why we want to signal to the other person.
Yeah. Totally. It's the listening that can be, but again, like the listening, we talk about how fluent listening is listening for those content words, because you don't need those little words to understand mainly what people are saying. However, when you go to speak and write, guess what? You need those little words again.
You do. Or
So
when you structure it, to speak, because you have to have the confidence of knowing how to put it together. Yeah, for sure.
Well, right. And especially when I say you need them, I totally agree with you that it doesn't matter so much if you stress, but if you don't have them at all, right?
Then
I want to go to the movie is not going to work for most people who are trying to move up. So, if you hear, I want to go, or you say, you write wanna instead of want to, right? Is maybe a better example. So that's not what people need. So I think I have to say it, why lyrics, actually I haven't talked about this so much, why reading lyrics while you listen, or reading subtitles while you watch, right, or looking at a podcast script while you listen is huge. Or TOEIC, I have a whole for all the tests, all the ETS tests like TOEFL and TOEIC, all the Cambridge tests, IELTS and the other ones, a really cool procedure students can follow with when to use the script and when not to, and doing dictation and shadowing, because it's, so important. They're like, well, on the test, you don't see the text. Exactly. You got to see it here. So if you don't do test practice with seeing it, you're screwed. You've got to see how the words sound compared to how they look, right? Especially in languages like English or French, where the relationship between how it's written, it's Spanish is different, Japanese is different. You kind of, you learn the sound, you learn the letter. Well, Japanese is a little more, not the best example. Spanish, right? You learn the letter E is A, and it's always A.
It's
But in French or
consistent.
English, by contrast, right? So doing stuff with scripts, but guess what? Lyrics are scripts, and again,
Mm,
it's natural. So if you get
yeah.
into or acting like lines,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So that, to me, that's a really big thing people need to know out there. And that's why when they say, should I use subtitles or not? I mean, my wife is almost bilingual, and she still watches with subtitles because she wants, again, to really pick up new
Yeah.
stuff. And she knows if I read it and I hear it, I'm more likely to remember it. So anyway, I keep
So
going on about that, but lyrics are just amazing. Um,
So in a second, I'm going to ask you for some tips on how to do it, or what's the best way to practice or work with
okay.
music.
Hmm.
Before that, I want to ask you about your own experience learning French, and have you
Hmm.
learned French? Because you live in Paris, and your
Hmm.
first language is English, so obviously you had to learn French at some point.
Yes, yes.
And have you used the techniques that you use for teaching English when you learn French?
I'm laughing because I've been waiting for someone to ask me this question. You are the first person to ask me, and
Really?
I'm
Okay.
so excited. No, no, in this kind of context,
Okay.
definitely people ask me, but not when we're recording, and I can talk about it, and hopefully more people will see it. It's a great question. I learned French middle school and high school, but it was horrible audiolingual conversations I don't remember anymore, like
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier, because I didn't listen to them enough. It wasn't meaningful. But I did develop, just basic understanding of the grammar and some vocabulary. So my wife and I met in New York, in Brooklyn, and we raised our kids bilingual in New York, visiting here over the years. So I practiced French. Okay, I've never applied any of what I do to learning French, and it's interesting, and that's why, to me, my French is plateaued. I
Mm.
feel like if I did, but the reason I don't, it's interesting, and it's complicated for me. Is I go back and forth on it. But one reason is, in this country, everybody wants to speak English to me all the time.
Really? So
So
you feel like people would choose to?
everybody,
Wow. Okay.
everybody. If I start in French, they switch. I mean, they're really going for it now in France. It wasn't the case like 10 years ago. But
Right.
now it's really changed. Plus, I teach with a lot of English teachers. I'm always working. So that's one excuse. I mean, if I were at a company and I had to ingratiate myself with coworkers, and I had to, I needed French for a lot of things. So it kind of improves, but very, very slowly. But I think I have not naturally, and this is where I'm very, very stubborn about this, I guess. I feel like I want and I want to tell this story later. I want to naturally fall into something that I want to repeat. I
Mm.
haven't had that yet. I had that with French rap, except the French rap is beyond my level because it's
I
dialect
see.
and it's all right. So I listen to it, but it's not great. But like, if, for example, like, I feel like one of these days, right, I will like find a YouTuber in French, or find a podcast, somebody. I'm really into this idea of getting hooked, not like I have to, because I know if I have to repeat, I'm back to, that's not what I do, right? That's not what works. So I feel like, then when that happens, I'm going to watch my French go up, and that will help
Mm.
me kind of validate what I do. Not that I really need to validate it. I mean, on a daily basis, basically, I get people telling me, oh my God, when I repeat your songs, I can remember more, but I'm not repeating anything. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. And so I use that example with students who are like, yeah, well, we're not repeating anything either. We're going to class and talking. I use English. The difference, I mean, French. I use it all the time.
Right.
I'm always using it. When I say I don't speak a lot, I mean, I go to the pharmacy or the supermarket. I'm using it at my level all the time.
Yeah. You
I'm
get
not in a
by.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but in a situation where people are expressing their opinions deeply, it's going to be tough for me, just the way it was for my
Mm.
English students in New York, and that's why I wrote the songs, so they can say, what do they think about gun control, or what do they think about difference between Korean food and American. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
have that in French, and I
Which
really believe that's why.
it's nice to kind of like tie it back to, you have to want it,
Mm.
and have like a specific goal in mind. Because when you don't, then you don't have the motivation to even search for it or find it. Or
No.
and 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 I think this is also a big part of the learning journey of people who really want to improve. They have to tap into why it's important. Because if it's not, then you can invest your energy elsewhere.
Of
That
course.
is, yeah.
You got to get
So
hooked. The hook is either, in my
yeah,
case, going to be like I said. Somebody's like, "Hey, Jason, you got to check out this French, YouTuber talking about hip hop and or this game in French. Oh my God, there's this addictive game where you use French, and I started. Oh my God, I want to play again. Or it's going to be, I need French to get this job. I
right.
need French to take this test. Right. I think
Yeah,
those are the two things that
yeah,
happen. Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I have this piece of information that I know about you, that you did put yourself out there in French,
Uh-huh.
and showed up in front of the world because you participated in France Got Talent with
La France
your,
a un incroyable talent, c'est ça, oui, j'ai fait ça.
yeah.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Comment vous appelez-vous? Je m'appelle Jason Levine. Je suis américain, mais j'habite en France maintenant.
Tell
Oui,
me about this
j'ai
experience.
gagné 4 oui, I got 4 yeses. Yes.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, like in a situation like that, I can have conversation. My French is not bad, okay? But what I mean is it's plateauing. Like, if you saw me, like, I've been here 10 years. If you looked at, 6 years ago and today, you'd be like, 6 years ago, French is pretty good. Oh, today's French is pretty good, but nothing's really happened.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but back to your question. Yeah, somebody scouted me basically because I was on the French news and asked me if I wanted to be a contestant on the show, but it wasn't an automatic thing. They don't just, when they scout you, that you're not on the show. It's more like, okay, now you have to audition this way before you get to the point where you can be on the stage for your audition. There's like other steps. But yeah, I got there and it was a blast. The best thing about it is that I have this clip I can show students when I travel and do my
Right.
shows, because it's all about, again, the hook. If it's like, oh, this guy was on TV, maybe I want to follow him and listen to his songs, right? That's the hook. That's
Yeah,
the hook. I don't have in French, right? I was just explaining. Like, I'm trying to create that hook, so that really helps. It really
I
helps.
love that. So what would you tell people who want to learn with music? Like, what would your top 3 tips or one tip that you would like to share? How can they get started?
The first thing I think anybody would say this: is there music in English that you're curious to know more about and understand the lyrics, all of that, right? So I think definitely, listening with lyrics. I mean, I have so many examples of students who don't use my materials necessarily. I'm going to get to that in a second, but who just, especially when Spotify started putting lyrics on almost all the songs, suddenly had all these students who are like learning English so much faster.
Amazing.
So, before they were listening without the lyrics. So, I would just say, listen to music you like with the lyrics. Don't try to have any goal in mind necessarily.
Mhm.
If you're moved to like stop and check a word in the dictionary, then that's great. But like, don't make it an assignment. Just kind of,
Right. Do they need to like it, or should it be like a song where they understand all the words? What's more
Well, that's
important?
that's that's an interesting question, right? And that gets back to where I would say, use my songs or try them out,
For
But
example, that they can find on your YouTube channel, right?
oh, right, right. But it's not as much me trying to like, sell myself as, there is this issue, right? That for a lot of people, the songs that might be at their level, if they're adults, are not going to be songs they would normally listen to because it's not music they like. It's not lyrics. It's like for kids. That being said, there are, right, occasionally songs that are very simple, that are out there. Definitely. So, I mean, there are 2 ways you can kind of just, notice them. You can go on the internet and be like, easy songs in English,
Mm,
rock songs with, conditionals. Like, you can search
cool.
yourself and you can find there's a lot of stuff out there like that. So that can be cool. You can just sort of Google stuff. But yeah, I wrote the songs that I've written and continue to write because I'm aiming for that adolescent or adult in
Yeah.
terms of what they would naturally listen to. Doesn't mean they have to like rap. So people who are watching might be thinking, yeah, but I don't like rap. But my style is more like, old school party beats and stuff. So you basically, if you don't like funk music, if you don't like, dance music, you probably wouldn't like my music kind of thing, as opposed to you don't have to be a rap fan.
Right.
But yeah, I write these songs like, I take a lot of time to think about like what's the most high frequency idioms, high frequency phrasal verbs, whatever it is to
So
put
what's the
in there.
process? You're like writing down all those phrases or words that you want them to know.
Right. Well, I just sort of have a word bank, and if you want to write a song yourself, that's what I would recommend too. Is sort of have this stuff I want to put in. Then I start
Yeah.
thinking about the rhymes, and then actually a message comes in there. So I do, although I don't start, I really am focusing on this most lexical level chunks, grammar structures. But then what happens invariably to write a song is there has to be a story, there has to be a message. I
Right.
would never write a song just like repeating those functional expressions or something, because then you're back to the original problem. It's like, where's the context? So there's stories and there are situations, but they're easy to understand, as opposed to a lot of songs that are out there.
And by the way, can you just tell us where exactly they can find all of those songs on your YouTube channel?
Yeah. On my YouTube channel, it's not the most organized, but it's there. I still need to get back in there.
Fluency MC.
The other thing is people are welcome. My email is support@fluencymc.com. If you want to put a link, email's another thing. I'm happy to answer anybody that watches this if they have a question about where to find stuff, or I
Great.
can also send lyrics to them and things like that. I have a free lyrics book that you can get on the
Oh,
website.
amazing.
Yeah. So there's that. And then one more thing I want to make sure I say.
And I'm just gonna, and I'm just gonna make sure that we link everything
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
description so you guys can find all the links to YouTube,
Cool.
Instagram, and go ahead.
If you're
Jason.
a teacher, I have one thing I sell, which is an activity book for teachers, what they can do in the classroom, and also what their students can do outside of class with the songs. And it comes with access to all the videos in a private space on my site.
Wow.
it's
So
without the YouTube.
you teach in classrooms, right?
Mm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you've kind of like the experience that you have is not just out of your brain, it's really
Yeah.
from practice, right? Like you've been using
Yeah.
these materials.
For years. But I should say right away on this that I don't rap in the classroom usually.
Oh,
I
you
don't.
don't?
Oh,
I
no.
imagine that you do.
Yeah, well, this is really important to talk. I'll do it if it's a new song I want to introduce. Try. I'll do it if students ask me sometimes. But this is about practice. This is about repetition. The reason I don't rap in class is the same reason you don't drill for an hour in your classroom. The classroom is where you're using English, right? Activities, create things, dialogues. But you can't succeed in those activities if you don't have the language up here, right? You're translating, You're looking in the book. The whole point when I wrote the first song, Stick, Stuck, Stuck for Irregular Verbs, was that if the students listen to the song and they come to class, then when we're doing stuff, it's like a flip classroom, right? When they come to class, they'll be able to actually do the communicative activity. So I mean, rapping in the classroom, even if students are doing it, is not a communicative activity. It's a activity designed to get retain the language. Then you do the right. So I teach like most other people. What's different with that is my students usually have more English in their heads, more of the target language that they can use. But I wanted to say one super important thing.
Yes.
And that's that, all of my lyrics, I mark the stress, and that's a big thing when you're saying, what can people do? I mean, if you're reading the lyrics on Spotify and listening, that's good. But even better is if you can see, where that rhythm is, not just hear it, because you'll start to naturally internalize those patterns of where words are stressed in the words on the syllables and then in the sentence.
So so should they like copy paste it into a Google Doc and mark the stressed words if it's a song that they love?
I mean, in my songs,
You've done it, so they can go ahead and go to your website or your channel.
Yeah. If they have any problems, just tell them to email me, because my site is a little messy at the moment. But let me just give you a great example, Hadar. This is really quick. So, songs like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. If you think about like kids acquiring English as their first language, right? So that song has the part where it goes, like a diamond in the sky, right? So it's not natural as far as conversation, right? Because songs are not designed to teach, right? So you think, well, because we would say like a diamond in the sky, right? Like a diamond in the sky, like a diamond in the sky, right? But it's like diamond in sky. It's not natural. But why do kids whose first language is English have no problems? Because they hear enough people saying like a diamond in the sky, like a this
Right.
over there, like a that over there.
Right.
So it's not a problem. But students, if it's your second language and you're not getting enough input like a kid would in that language, you're going to need, right? What are you listening to? So,
Yeah.
a lot of pop music, another example is like in pop music, they would say, everybody, right? Nobody says everybody.
Everybody. Yeah.
But guess what? The stress is everybody. So this is the way I sort of sell what I do, because, I've carefully made sure that it's all natural. Like you can read what I do. I also have it like in a cappella form. I want to do it with spoken form. If you speak my songs, they sound like natural conversation. And that's not true of a normal pop song.
So because I know that there are a lot of teachers also in the audience. So can you elaborate a bit more about this guide that you have for teachers? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So it's super easy on my website, or you can just Fluency MC activity book. If you Google that, you'll get to the page. But yeah, it's a PDF book. They can print it, put it in their computer. Sort of a honesty principle thing, like if you want to print it for your students, if you want just if another teacher wants it, if your school wants it, maybe don't share it, kind of thing. But it's, if some people like to print out the lyrics, so students have hard copies. Some people just like to put it on the project the lyrics. But yeah, they also get MP3s for all the songs. So I don't most people who have my MP3s take them from the YouTube videos, which is fine. But this is a way to have them actually in just the song form without having to download the video and convert it to an audio file. So yeah, it's in instrumentals. It's all the songs, instrumentals. I say all the songs in the book, the 15 songs. And it's mainly for sort of, A2 to B2 level students. They can check it out on my site, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
And I think, especially since there aren't a lot of resources or material that is about this, about rhythm, and also about because it's you get the benefit of the two elements of one is the rhythm of the language, right, and the other one is remembering. And
I'll send you the book right after this call, because I don't think
I want to buy it. I'm going to buy it. Don't send it to me. No.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I just I already speak because I didn't know you had it. So
I know, because I'm not really out there marketing, which is good in one way because I hate it, and bad in another way because I could be making more money. But there it is.
No, but listen, it's like I think when someone puts in their life's work, or at least some of their intention and attention, I think it's first of all, it's worthwhile. There is a lot of value in it, and me as a consumer, I'm always happy to pay for good content.
So I'll send you the link instead, and hopefully there won't be a problem with the payment. If there is, then you can have it for free.
Jason,
or you can
do we
PayPal.
want to talk about processes?
Oh God, I have too many problems with my website. We got another conversation on the teacher entrepreneur issue. That's
yeah, I know. We started the conversation about entrepreneurship, and then I said, I hope I don't start.
I'm glad we're not talking about that, even though I have a lot to say about it and I need help with it. But yeah, it's much more fun to talk about prosody.
Yeah, exactly. Prosody versus processes. Like, let's see what. Yeah,
versus
I can see where you're leaning into. All right. Anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, or make sure that you want to?
No, just if I have a tendency to digress. So if I didn't really fully answer any of your questions, I'd be happy to.
No, I think you did. Anything. I'm also like you. I'm like, woo, let's move around between, the subject.
No, just that, I love talking to students and teachers. If they email me, if they send me a message on Facebook, if we're not friends, I probably won't see it. Instagram is a great way to send messages.
Yeah, DMs.
So I'll accept any message if we're not connected on Instagram. Instagram's a great way to see, what I do with in schools. So I've been done shows in 24 countries now. I've had audiences up to 500 kids at once.
Wow. How does
Yeah, so
that
those are
feel?
yeah, it's great. It's amazing. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm lucky because right now I balance that. Like the shows I do in schools are for middle school and high school, but I teach university students when I'm not traveling and doing the shows. So
Mm,
for me, it's really cool because, it'd be hard to just, for me at least, to only be with,
yeah.
adults or young adults or only with kids. So I have
Right.
a chance to do both, or just in the classroom or just in the stage on stage. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. So Instagram, you can see where I move around and what's going on, and then YouTube, where you can practice with the songs.
Beautiful. So we're going to link to all of that. And if you enjoyed this interview, then make sure you send Jason a DM on Instagram to let him know. Thank you so much for this
Oh,
lovely
it's a pleasure. Thank
conversation.
you. So much fun. Do it
Yeah,
anytime,
I know. We
all the
could
time.
talk about rhythm and prosody
Yeah,
forever.
yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
more to explore, maybe in like part two of this
Yeah, especially
interview.
collocations, chunking, and how the rhythm with collocations is also
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
So if you'd like more, let us know in the comments, like maybe a mini lesson or something like that.
Woohoo! Yeah, I still need to
Jason,
write. If you need me to write a song for anything you're doing, that would just be awesome. So let me know.
okay. Sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Jason.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, thank you, thanks to all of you out there
Thank you,
following
everyone.
Hagar. She's amazing. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you want to join the conversation, leave a comment below this video. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, the Influency podcast, then you can just send us a DM, Jason or myself, on Instagram. I'm going to leave the handles in the description. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jason, again for this beautiful conversation. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day, and I will see you, you know it, next week in the next video. Bye.